last panel of the day. We have 10 panelists, hour and 20 minutes to go. Wine is not yet served, so let's have some fun. Let's be quick, honest, and crisp. Wind farm development, a phrase not commonly used in Baltics. We had like one wind farm in Latvia built over the last 20 years. Finally, there's some development happening. In Estonia, there's also some development happening, but probably not at the scale everyone would wish. In Lithuania, there's a nice portfolio of already operating wind farms, and now we just had this large transaction where Enercon entered the market and will build 470 megawatt hybrid park, 140 of which I think is wind. So there is some experience already, some experience to be shared, some lessons learned. So we'll try to focus our panel on those practicalities. Before we start off, we heard today many discussions about what is blocking the scale up of wind farm development, what are the biggest obstacles. So maybe just to train our voices, question to each one of you, just very quickly, no follow-up. What is your single bottleneck in Baltic wind farm development? We can start from Linas and come back to me.
So the legislative volatility and I guess the financial part.
Norbert?
Orders. Yeah, I mean, on the development side, we don't have really a restriction, of course not, but what we see is that there are more projects ready to build than projects able to close finance.
Okay, Ilze?
Territorial planning and environmental impact assessment as procedures.
Okay, we'll get to that. Laura?
I think the public opinion still is one of the biggest bottlenecks regarding the development of wind farms. But I think it also has built the clash between the public opinion and yes, the developers, because there has not been set direct objectives for how many actually wind farms or turbines do we need, and that is one of the clashes in between the public opinion and I think the development options.
Okay. Mindaugas.
Lack of clear route to market, I would say, which then results in the absence of the cost-efficient financing instruments.
Okay, that's, I think, many good starting points, each of which we could discuss for many hours, but we have quite limited time, so let's jump to it. Linas, you are representing company developing in all three Baltic states. If you had to rank Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia in overall process, what would be the honest rank?
So the Lithuania, then Latvia, and then Estonia. So, you know, Lithuania had the breakthrough package that happened in 2022 that helped to jumpstart all the developments, and then there's numbers to back it up. We do have some drawbacks with this. The 1H, the 4H rule, the birds and bats that are being currently and always disputed between the parliament and the people, the communities. So this is just an ongoing matter, but we still managed to get the projects to market. We managed to develop those and just move forward with that. Latvia, of course, the second ranking. We do see, as mentioned, EAA and zoning planning as the biggest bottlenecks right now. And Estonia, we are developing their projects from 2020, and I think we only have 2 successful acceptances for now. The spatial planning procedures are terrible, and you just have to live with that. Always hope for the next election.
In Latvia, we have saying it always can be worse. So thanks for your ranking. I mean, not so great news for Estonians. Same question to suppliers. Norbert, maybe we can start with you. In which of the 3 countries you would see the most credible pipeline, and in which country you have to educate developers the most?
Yeah, I would say let's go by the facts. So Lithuania is really leading. So they opened the pipeline and brought projects to construction earlier. So politically, they had a more ambitious plan. Latvia is following now. We have, as Nordex, close to 500 megawatt at the same time under construction. So it's really a big jump for Latvia. And Estonia is really also at the smallest of the Baltic countries, lagging behind. What I hear is that, but I think it's not really distinguishing Estonia from Latvia, is that sometimes communities having problems that the opponents to wind farms are gaining loud voices, and then they need to wait for the next elections, and then it takes all longer. But I heard similar stories also from Latvia. So, but if we go by the facts, this is the ranking I would give it.
Okay, Mindaugas.
Yeah, I would just confirm what others have said. For sure, Lithuania is the front runner, where the majority of the projects were built in the last few years compared to all Baltics. I guess it also has then the best established supply chain, contractors network, ports are best prepared there. Although, as it was also discussed today during the event, the market is starting to saturate a bit and slowing down a bit. When it comes to Latvia, it's a different story. We see a lot of projects in the development, but not too much projects being in the execution or being built lately. So I think when it comes to the know-how that market can utilize from the OEMs is still there. Our experience in the construction projects, project management in other areas, we can still educate the market a bit, while in Lithuania, yeah, the market is established quite well itself. For Estonia, I can only agree the permitting timelines are super long. Therefore, it makes it difficult to bring the project alive, or at least ready to build. Although now we see quite good tailwinds coming from the government support mechanism, which lately being announced. All in all, I think from companies like us, like Nordex as well, we have long-standing positions in the market. We are active here more than 20 years with our service operations, also construction experience. So I guess a lot of projects, especially in Latvia, could still benefit from that a lot.
Okay, interesting insights. Ilze, you heard the rankings. Let's take the golden middle ground, which is Latvia. Say a new investor comes into your office tomorrow and say, well, what does it take? How long does it take to build a wind farm? What number would you give him?
Realistically, I would say like anywhere between 4 and 10 years. That's a realistic term, depending on the scale of.
That's also a very legal term.
Yeah, but smaller wind parks, yeah, you have good municipality, no detail plans, probably no detail plan. It will go faster. If there's a big one scattered around larger territory, it will take longer. But actually, the reality is that in worst case scenarios, it can take even longer than 10 years. I really checked the wind farms which we have seen, like in due diligences, or the ones which are already built. It takes a lot of time.
Okay, it takes a lot of time. What fills out that time? So 10 years. Can you just give a broad overview of the 10-year timeline?
Very broad. Jorens actually counted. If we look at how many like signatures or sign-offs or approvals you need, it's not less than 20 or more. It's including decision makers on the municipality level. Then on the governmental level, many institutions who are decision makers or issuers of the technical requirements, like Civil Aviation Agency, Armed Forces, National Armed Forces. Yeah, you also need to agree with them the height of the wind turbine and where it's allowed to locate it and where not. And then many technical requirements, institutions who issue technical requirements. DCOs, gas, Latvian state forests, you name it. It's a long list, yeah. And in worst case scenarios, administrative courts also sometimes, have a saying when it's disputed. So that is where the projects get stuck, when you need to receive a lot signatures.
Norbert, you had build up?
Yeah, I would say that it's really a critical point and some streamlining necessary, because there's this loop description of you fully correctly, but the worst is when you have gone through the loop and then the technology you have planned is obsolete, exactly. And you go through it the second time, and then you really come to these 7 to 10 years. So what is really appreciated if authorities cooperate, if there's a will on the political side to streamline, you can also do it in 2 or 3 years, and then you really know what you plan in the permit on the technical side, and you can also realize it.
Also, just to add here, of course, technology improves, but it doesn't improve by miles. I mean, we are looking at the rotors being introduced in the market bigger by 5, by 10 meters. So I guess this level of flexibility harms nobody, basically. And if we would have such flexibility in the permits, it would help everyone a lot.
Okay. Good timeline, good insights. Lucky for us, we have representative from authority. Liena, you're part of the puzzle. Developers often complain most about EIA process. From where you sit, what do you see would be the biggest help to shorten those processes without compromises to environmental protections?
Okay, I'll start with the quality actually of the impact assessment report. That is one thing we actually need to make more accountability for the private consultancy firms who actually produce those reports, because there is very, very bad, actually also quality reports we gain, and that takes time, you know, to rewrite them sometimes even, and to include all the necessary lacking information and data after submitting the first initial report, especially the first initial report. And I think that is one big issue we need to deal with in future. Also, lack of data, or that is what we actually need to improve. And in my opinion, the regular state budget for the regular monitoring, for example, on different, you know, the birds or bats or different other things regarding the development of the wind farms would be very necessary, because as now we are lacking this regular financing, we kind of ask that developers provide this data, and that takes time, of course, because then the data needs to be gained, and then the data needs to be analyzed, and the data needs to be submitted, and the process goes on. That is one more thing. I think there is also a better, you know, coordination and cooperation between the institutions on the government side, of course, because, for example, we have, you know, if our, you know, determined rules and are already included in the report, for example, then maybe we don't need to look at this report again. And the institution responsible for, you know, giving the guidance to the developers, which is now in Latvia's case, it's the State Environmental Service, they could just, you know, go it through themselves and don't ask other institutions to do it again. And I think that would shorten the process in the end.
Do you think the last one, because you mentioned, okay, the private responsibility for those consultants, but there's still responsibilities there, so that's, I think, partly solvable. Budget issues less so, given ours perhaps. But
we can also, I think, look more at maybe different perspective. Maybe actually the private developers could kind of support with financing this process, and maybe, you know, not support the private consultancy firms, but maybe support the government institutions in order to get the faster results and the better quality result from the process.
And just quickly follow up on the last one where you say the better coordination between authorities. Is it just talking, or should there be some legislative amendments to facilitate that? Because that is a real issue, what you mentioned, and that should be solved on the state's end for sure.
Of course, if it is stated in the regulation, there is a mandatory need to, you know, go kind of commit to the regulation, but if it's not, then it's just, you know, between the people, and the people change. So if the people change, the process is not working on, so better to say it and put it in the regulation.
Okay. Linas, all three Baltic states, developer, are you willing to support state institutions financially, or where do you see the issues? Is it lack of legislation, too much legislation, implementation, interpretation, all of it? What's your take here?
Depends a little bit on the sector. We also are tackling the same issues with the environmental agencies. Birds and bats, you know, studies that needs to be conducted for the EAA, how it's being interpreted, what kind of curtailment it brings to the project itself. There is discussions on the market to actually create a fund to protect some national species, or to invest into better technologies. The developers are willing to take these kind of investments. Supporting in data, that could be also an option. It's always welcome to broaden the knowledge of the institutions, so we could all find better synergies while developing the projects. That's quite an interesting take, and I think, especially in Lithuania, this is a discussion that was brought to the market attention a few times. Unfortunately, it didn't lead too far, but yeah, we might get there.
If you knock, someone will open eventually.
Yeah, yeah. Same in Estonia, same in Latvia. I hear the same problems throughout the Baltics, to be honest. So this has to be tackled. A close, open discussion with the institutions is always welcome, and I think that's supported by the associations and all the developers.
Would you say if a country who really cuts bureaucracy, because it's a very common theme now, would it gain competitive edge over other countries?
Of course, of course. You see here, energy policy has to be firstly led by the government goals. So we have that right now. We had a similar event just a month ago, I think, in Vilnius. So there, we have different institutions coming in together, setting some guidelines and setting some ideas, clear path, and these are being followed. The discussions, of course, need to be aligned between the development, between the private and between the state view. But nevertheless, when there's a straight goal for everyone to follow, it's easier on the market themselves. So I think here that gives Lithuania the competitive edge right now. The Latvia and Estonia is lacking.
Okay. Going to supply side, Norbert, Mindaugas, you work with technical matters, these grid codes, access to grid, DSOs requirements. How do you compare broadly where Baltic stands in comparison with other markets you operate in? Is something better here? For example, in Latvia, wind turbine installation is not construction works, and it can, at least so far, can go rather smoothly. But yeah, Norbert.
I would say broadly reasonable requests. No issue with that. Nevertheless, also part of the first panel this morning, some standardization and, let's say, unify a grid code request for all three Baltic countries, which somehow have an electricity market, which is one, would make sense instead of having to follow up on three different grid codes and three different forms of testing and so on. Okay, but it's not on our side. I can formulate as a wish. But actually, we have done grid code tests successfully in Estonia. We have done grid code tests successfully in Lithuania. Latvia, now we are commissioning, so still a bit away from testing. With Litgrid, at least you have communication. You can sit down with them. They have some requests which are, let's say, outside the possibilities of the wind turbines we are selling, so then you need to come to exceptions, deviations, and after, let's say, having the experts talking to each other, they understand that the request they have cannot be fulfilled from wind turbine, and then they formulate an exception and the wind farm can be connected. I'm talking about things like black start or a POD function, power oscillation damping, in certain number of hertz, 5 hertz or whatever. The industry can't do it, and then they settle on it and they adapt also the regulation. That's fine.
Mindaugas?
Yeah, I just can also follow up on this when it comes to the grid codes. And I do not say that something is more difficult here compared to the other markets, but the main issue is that it is different. The unified approach would definitely help, either on Baltics level or even looking at the broader picture. What's always, I understand the grid codes are changing, those are adapting and those are improving, but it surprises me when we currently have in Lithuania, for instance, Enercon legacy units connected to transmission network, which operate without any problems. And if I would need to connect the same units today, it would not be able to pass the grid test. So it's like, blows my mind a bit here. And then, again, it's not a problem nor for Enercon or the other OEMs. We all could develop, we all have the capabilities for that. But it basically results in the end in the increased time, increased costs, and sometimes even some unnecessary discussions. And just also to add what Norbert said here about the grid and the requirements, it would be also very beneficial if the cooperation between the grid code regulation and the OEMs would take place before they setting the grid code, rather than after when you come to the actual testing, the testing phase. So that's my take.
But the example you mentioned in Lithuania, do you see it as technically justified new requirement, or is it just, let's try this?
It was different like 10 or 15 years ago.
And those farms are still operating?
Yeah, they're operating without any problems, no issues at all, good availabilities, and no impact on the grid so far. And The same machine could not be operated anymore now. I mean, in other markets, maybe you could also see similar examples. But then again, we as a German OEM, for sure, developing the products for the high volume markets. Germany is one of those. And in Germany, we can fulfill the grid connection conditions. This is our focus market. But if you bring the same German compliant turbine to Lithuania, it suddenly then cannot be compliant anymore. And then you need, as I said, develop to market, which is, again, not an issue. We have the capabilities and the capacities. We are willing to do so. But it creates a necessary resource or the waste of resource on our end.
So message to Latvian and Estonian TSOs, do not follow example of
Or
Baltics.
please come to us before you do so.
Okay, that's good insight. To wrap up on the permitting process, Laura, coming back to you. Say you now have a greenfield regulation. You can put up the EI process from scratch. What would be the main thing you would change in the whole legislation to make sure that the new process covers the needs what we have currently in Latvia? As you heard, many projects in pipeline, which means many projects are in EIA process, because that's one of the first items in the process.
I think that actually the process itself is not a problem. The problem is how it is actually implemented, and that is the next thing you need to talk about, its implementation phase. And I think one thing I already mentioned is accountability of the quality of the reports. And that is one thing we can actually maybe try to change, and I'm not going to be very popular here, but I think that we need to build on government institutional capacity, because we are starting to really lack it. For example, in our institution, only 3 experts are working and examining those reports now.
3 experts?
Yeah, 3 experts among other duties. So they are not just exclusively dedicated to this. To this area of expertise, and what we are asked from the government, we are asked to reduce our costs. We are asked to reduce our staff, and that is not actually
doesn't go well together.
It doesn't go well together, and of course there is also this. Competition between us and the private sector. If the consultancy firm needs an expert because there is a, increased volume for development projects, and there is a larger need for expertise. So they are, taking our experts from the government side because they are trained and they are qualified.
And they don't need process.
And in the end, we need to, educate new people in order to actually do their job good. And I would say that maybe we need to start to look at this a little bit different, and maybe we can, I don't know, for example, provide like a paid service fee for this the same, same procedure as for the government institution, not just the private consultancy firm. Maybe that could also help in the end, and there will be better quality reports, and actually the developers wouldn't stuck with the very bad, attracted experts, and that could change the situation a lot. And I also wanted to say that actually there is one very good, project under development under the Ministry of Climate and Energy, which we are also collaborating, and that is a building, and there is also, you can also see it now online. There is this map of industrial development territories, potential territories with different kind of restraints. Already you can take in advance and look at the territory where there will be bigger risks or less bigger risks in order, to develop the project. And that is one good way how to see the territories, because one of the reasons actually why the process it takes so long is that the territories which were chosen as to be the developed areas, they're having a lot of, for example, nature, values and other things which make it very hard for the developer to develop the project in the end. So we need to look at those
tackle the problems at the beginning. But what you mentioned regarding specialists, is it lack of educated specialists, lack of budget, both?
Both.
Both. Okay. Thank you. I think we can expand on this for a long time, but we have to jump forward. Back to supply chain, we heard all those problems we're facing in very sort of we scratch the surface of the problems we're facing here. Mindaugas, how do you justify your board saying that we Baltics should get the same attention as Western countries?
Well, I think to start with, going to lower volume markets or medium volume markets like Baltics is, it's about the diversification. There is no internal fight for the capacities. I believe this is not a big problem. But what I'd like to pinpoint here, maybe from the developers and the project's point of view, I think the projects are fighting in between the markets. Like if we look at Germany, which has a very strong CFD mechanism, which also then results in quite attractive financing costs, they for sure are less affected by the capex or by the prices of the equipment. When we come back to Lithuania or Baltics, for them to digest the same amounts, it's not that easy task. They for sure require the better priced equipment and so on and so forth. For us, Baltics is still a very stable and long-standing market, as I said, and then it just serves as a good diversification area.
Norbert, similar or?
My company loves Baltic countries. Very successful, more than a gigawatt in Lithuania, 500 megawatt now in Latvia. And the problem is the expectation I'm raising with that being so successful. No, really straightforward.
Okay, that's
I mean, your question went a little bit what's happening if market size is going down. So we are working with a flexible sales force in Eastern Europe of various countries, and it's already our factual situation. 4 years ago, we sold 450 megawatt in Poland, nothing somewhere else. The next 2 years, we sold like this gigawatt in Lithuania. And most likely Lithuania will now go down, then we move hopefully to Romania, which is now picking up. So on the sales side, quite easy to rule. On the project management side, we get always skilled labor in on the local sites, but we shift the skilled labor between the countries on the execution side. We are sending them to the other countries also to a certain level possible. And on the service side, there's no problem. Most of the contracts go along with 20, 25, or up to 30 years service contracts. So everything what is built has the workforce then for a long time with a good horizon.
good. Right. Linas, do you feel the same, that you as a developer in Baltics, you get the same delivery windows, terms and conditions as someone else would? To be honest.
Yeah, to be honest, kind of yes.
Kind of
yes. Yeah, we can now expect the 12-month delivery term, which is very good. The service quality is also improving rapidly throughout the years. The service bases are being established throughout the entire Baltics. Of course, we can always just expect and one more of those to keep the good availabilities. And but the overall job the OEMs is doing in the Baltics is excellent. The sales guys is always putting the right points everywhere, so we're pretty happy.
And the same to supply, you are also pretty happy with Baltic developers, they're well educated, or do you feel they just default for whatever is available? Give me something bad, so it's more fun.
Oh, I mean, I personally cannot say anything bad about the Baltic developers, and they are not defaulting for what is available for sure. And I think the question more refers to the available turbine models at a given time. But then I think Baltics is a very good environment for that. First of all, as also majority of the OEMs develop for the high volume markets, and for instance, in our case, we are looking very closely at Germany. When you compare the wind conditions in inland Germany locations, this is quite comparable to Lithuania as well. And I think the market and the developers could easily benefit for that, which is definitely not the case in some other markets like UK, Ireland, even Romania. So yeah, I think you just need to start buying more and bringing more projects. It's your time.
Norbert, anything to add?
Nothing really to add there.
Okay, then let's finalize this panel, pivoting back a bit for still the bad stuff, which is permitting. And as a fellow attorney, here's the final word to you in the first block. Grid process, how do you see that? You saw the people say do not see many problems. What do you say as a lawyer?
As we are running out of time, I will summarize with an example. This grid process is like a dancing event where the developer needs to dance with 3 partners at the same time. The one is the security guard standing by the doors and deciding whether to let you in, and this is basically the state environment service. Just giving you the capacity permit, saying, okay, you look nice, you have land use rights, no sanctions, no whatever, please come in to the dancing event. And then the nice dance around and with TCO starts, because TCO is the ones who set the speed, the rhythm, the dancing music, and you just need to comply. And the tricky part is that from one part, it's quite regulated process, but there are certain aspects which are not so strictly regulated, and then you really need this cooperation. But so far, we have experienced a good cooperation with TCO, but I'm just saying that it's not always easy, especially when all the development started. There were many questions, like the procedures were improved, etc. And then, of course, the regulator who actually sets the procedures, and that's the choreographer of this all. But basically, of course, that the system was designed many years ago, and when all this started, it was probably initially difficult, but then it was improved and everybody adjusted. So I think we are dealing well with that.
Oh, we are having flashing lights. You mentioned dancing, so actual dancing will start in probably 1 hour. So, but thank you to the first block of panelists. Round of applause to them. And we can invite the second.
Yes. Thank you very much to the first round. I mean, look at the full room. It's almost as if everyone attending this conference actually wants wind farms to be developed. While we're just changing the water, I'll start by inviting the next round of speakers. So please welcome on stage Krzysztof Kosiarski, Logistics Manager for Nordex Polska. Next up, we have Mārtiņš Ziemanis, Managing Director of Stena. Next up, we have another Mārtiņš Lazdovskis, Chairman of the Board, Latvian State Roads. Then we have Kaspars Rožkalns, Chairman of the Board, UPB NAMS. And last but not least, this time we really do have Renārs Urbanović, Country Manager for Latvia, Utilitas Wind. Thank you.
So
Mix.
we are having okay, so we are having a manual as a block 2. That's good. We heard the first part, permitting has been done, everything is ready to build, so the actual construction starts. Mārtiņš Ziemanis. We have 2 Mārtiņš, so you can make a wish, indeed.
Krzysztof can make a wish, he is sitting between.
Yeah. So, walk us through what it actually takes to ship a turbine components into a Baltic port. What's the easy part, what's the hard part?
I just will share our journey through all this. There are basically 3 major points, I would say. The first one is just a vision and belief that we really can do that, because it's not like a very simple dry bulk cargo or general cargo, which we are used to handle and service all the time. So that was pretty much a big thing for us. And the second is definitely luck and trust. So we were pretty much lucky that our partners Nordex trusted to us to do that, because actually we were starting not somewhere between the first campus of Everest, but starting right from the peak. So we actually serviced the largest wind turbine project in Europe, with the largest nacelles, 87 meters, which is a huge thing. And I still remember that day that all our team was standing at the berth and seeing that this big vessel coming towards to our terminal with all the turbines. And that was a really huge thing at that time. And third thing definitely is investments. So we as a terminal, as Stena Line, always thinking in long term for the long-term investments, and everything related to long term. So we believed that it won't be the only project in our terminal. So of course we needed to invest a lot of money on that. For example, we purchased a completely new heavy-duty crane, which is actually operated by electricity, which makes it a very sustainable operations because we are handling wind turbines which actually produce the electricity with the crane which is use electricity. Yeah, so it's super sustainable project for us. And all the related things like investments in all the safety, which is always priority for us, and other equipment, of course, as well. So that was a huge investment for the long term.
Okay. Krzysztof, you have the ability to compare Baltics and, let's say, Poland, Western Europe. What surprises you the most? Where do you see the biggest differences?
When we look at it, I would be very honest. I would try not to compare Poland to the Baltic regions, because for me, Baltic regions, actually, each country have its own specific. And in previous panel, we chat, when the conversation took place about which country is the best, which one is the easiest, every of them have its own specifics. The Poland, in certain way, is amazing. We have fantastic road networks. But with these road networks comes obstacles, bridges. 15 years ago, we didn't have that many bridges, which means we could push absolutely everything. Now, because of new express roads, bridges are built with a 4.3 meters height. That's, for logistic point of view, it's a big issue. When we move to Lithuania, we have the most expensive, probably in the East Europe, the most expensive permits for transportation. When we move to Latvia, it's a new market for us. When we've entered Latvia, we had certain expectations. We've heard many consultants advising us. Then we faced the reality. Lucky enough, we received fantastic support from Mārtiņš. We received good support, and we can see as well on the government level, a lot of things are happening, which is great. There are conversations taking place. The municipalities, unfortunately, it's something that is difficult to overcome that situation. So this is where I see a bottleneck at the moment. The permitting system, when we have to speak to so many municipalities, and those municipalities, they're not aligned with each other, which is creating the time frames that are not achievable. And they don't see it in the way that, unfortunately, as OM contractors, we do have our contractual arrangements with the developers, and we need to meet them. If we go to Estonia, I mean, in Estonia, we've done Project OTSI, which was fantastic. The way how Estonia authorities works, I think, is a very good example. And we see that Mārtiņš and his team is adapting as well in that way. So we can see that there's massive potential. But again, investments are required. And we have these conversations, how we can help each other. Because in our view, it shouldn't be about temporary solutions. If we know that something will happen, what we can do to leave a legacy behind. And this is our main focus at the moment, to leave the legacy. The wind market will last for 5, 6, maybe 10 years. And after these 10 years, let's leave legacy on the roads so that can be used in the future. And where the funding actually for those certain modifications doesn't have to always come from the government. It can be funded for different manners as well, and we're really happy to discuss that in the future as well. So this is what I'm saying, that each country will be different. We will never have same situation in every country.
Do you have your ranking of Baltics?
I do have my ranking,
okay,
but
go ahead.
And I'm not going to share it.
Okay, by the wine in 30 minutes. Mārtiņš, Ziemanis, maybe your ranking about like which of the Baltic ports is the most ready for all the volumes coming in?
I think it's definitely Ventspils because we have a proper knowledge for that. We have all the equipment needed, all the heavy lifts, everything, and we have a pretty much a modern terminal, and we have a very good team who can execute such a project and all the drafts and everything. So I think it's definitely Ventspils. I think it's the only one in Latvia actually which is handling these type of cargo at the moment.
Okay, one port. Krzysztof, you touched many good points about roads. So we'll go to now the roads and then delivery section of this turbine. So Renārs, maybe from developer side, how does the supply look to you? Because obviously the developers usually want to give all the risks to contractors. Everything is there, but it usually pops up somewhere.
Well, eventually, somebody has to do the job, and I guess the most reasonable way how to address this is to set up some kind of reasonable split of responsibilities between, turbine supplier, who is contracting their own transportation and logistics company for that, and also developers. So first of all, it's clear-cut site entry point. If we define that, of course, everything within that area becomes responsibility of developer, and this should be well ensured 110% that these deliveries within the site can be managed efficiently. There are layoff areas, there are storage areas, and so forth. So this helps a lot with this planning process. Next, of course, the route from the port itself down to the site entry. So there comes this split of responsibilities with a clear understanding if developer has been pretty well experienced in understanding what are the key critical risks, especially in relation to major overhaul of some road sections which need to be done, and typically developers understand the formal process behind getting these sections ready much better than turbine supplier or logistics company. So, and then again, in these cases, that's something that can be arranged well beforehand, working on technical designs which are suitable for the let's say road operators, be it municipalities or Latvian state roads, in a fashion which is suitable essentially for all three parties involved. So turbine supplier, developer, and eventually road operator. So it's a mutual collaboration which should take place and be well initiated well before actual transport deliveries kick off.
So the developers shouldn't be in illusion that they will not have to participate, right? They have to.
Well, they can be, but then again, it's not advisable.
Kaspars, do BOP contractors come into play here?
Well, depends on obviously different type of developer, but the general idea is design and build is something that's how you can move faster. The question is if you can look at the design build concept, then obviously what we've done is to split all the project in multiple construction permits. Therefore, you can do the design and build on the roads while you still are doing the design on foundations and design on cabling, let's say. And in this case, obviously, that is how you can get speed, because all the developers are mostly targeting that you need obviously to build on a budget, but also on very tight schedule. Because the most important part is when the first kilowatt goes into the grid. That is perfectly understandable. So the idea is, from our side, how we see that how we can manage the tight schedule and the budget, because nobody wants to pay more, but everybody wants to do it yesterday.
Cheap, fast, and good quality.
Yeah, cheap,
usually
fast,
one
good quality.
is missing. But
usually one is the missing, and however, if you look at let's say great concepts, then nothing is missing, because you can figure out the way how to deliver the less metal in the foundations because of the design. Because in design you can solve way more problems than in construction phase. In construction phase, you only can solve the very minor problems, and if you want to solve a major problem during the construction phase, it's definitely going to cost a lot. So the most important part is early stage consultancy to start with where the developers struggle, which turbines. Because when you know the turbine, you know the foundation, you know the, let's say, the loads, also from the turbine type, what type of the roads and construction of roads you'll need. So as fast as we can see that which turbine we can project, let's say, different costs on different turbines from the construction perspective, then developer has easier, let's say, to figure out, because they can see which turbine is cheaper, let's say so. But maybe on that specific model, on the cost of construction comes so much more on top that it actually makes no sense. So for us is what we are interested in to consult earlier, even if maybe the project is not actually fulfilled, but the chance for the project to be fulfilled is if you get more or less precise estimations as early as you can get.
So smart development strategy by splitting the permits and also early contractors involvement, couple of items. Okay, makes sense. Going now to the state roads. Mārtiņš, you were complimented by the colleagues that you're in a good collaborator, but you obviously handle all state roads. Where does the wind energy is in a big picture of state roads? Like, how do you make compromises versus other needs?
Maybe it's not the biggest, but in some cases the problems are suddenly big and suddenly on my table. I have experience, good and bad. I could easily blow up this conference, but it's afternoon. Everybody's looking for cocktails, but I have a lot to say. A lot to say about this wild, wild west sometimes approach, running to get first permission, and then suddenly you realize that you have piano, but you don't have idea how to get it into your apartment. And what then?
So it's a bad road planning?
I would say that I have a feeling that in some cases there wasn't a planning at all, actually. There's permission. We are running to start a project, maybe to sell the project. But actually, if you build a park, you should bring like 150 heavy load vehicles per day. Your construction have to start end of April, and then you are arguing that my fees for not supplying the turbines, for example, is 50,000 euros per day. But if the park is located with no normal access roads, with no normal bearing capacity, and you're planning your works late autumn, early spring, when you definitely know that these roads won't have any capacity, and then you have local community, that's the fourth player, actually you mentioned 3, that's the fourth player, and then there is a local community who is suddenly inviting all state media, and then my people suddenly are guilty, or they are pushed to feel guilty that roads are not in the shape they used to be. So from that perspective, what I can say that the planning, actually that's the same what Kaspars said, is important, and not just entry point. And everything which is before entry point is not my problem, but you have to understand how during construction process the works will be carried. Because if roads, especially gravel roads, if there is no capacity, we'll put weight limits, and simply you can't go there. Wait until winter when the roads are frozen. Luckily, this year we had winter, but a few others actually. These roads were without bearing capacity since November until April, and what then? So if you are choosing to build a farm with only access roads, gravel roads, you have to understand that these roads has to be strengthened before you start the works. And these are investments, and these are not small investments. The figures are big, significant. And then another part, which is actually how to transport equipment, which is huge equipment. Our roads generally were planned and constructed during Soviet times, So the equipment is getting bigger, bigger, and bigger, and there are bottlenecks. So we have spent a lot of time with Nordex team discussing how, where actually can we go, and there are areas of Latvia actually with very limited possibility to bring such a big equipment there. I'm not sure that there are no development plans. But maybe these development plans are just to sell to blind investors. I don't know.
But is these so the problems? So those are basically sort of tackled case by case basis. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you?
We have had like really good projects and relations with the project developers. I can say that project in Jelgava was a well-developed first project. Now we have good cooperation with Pienava project. These are good examples, but you don't have to guess. But there is a bad publicity also for other projects. And
would you, I don't know, benefit from more unified process, or do you, I don't know, have a capacity as authority, for example, to consult developers or,
yes.
or before?
Yes, yes, and I feel that that's our duty. That's our duty, despite that most probably, as in my organization, there are people who support the idea and others who doesn't. Our duty is to consult and to help, and as early you come to state roads, as better we would understand the problem and we could suggest a solution. Mm-hmm. I would say 1.5 years before start of construction would be most practical to come to understand what are delivery routes for construction process, what are delivery routes, and these can be different to bring windmills. Maybe there are some parts of roads to be used for putting in electricity cables. So all these aspects need to be discussed.
So early consultations, you're forward-looking, proactive. Just last question too, because you have been speaking. But like you mentioned, these local communities. Krzysztof mentioned the municipalities being the bottleneck. How do you deal with this political pressure, or because you are also a state-owned company and say
we are sailing.
You are what?
Sailing.
Sailing. So I'm saying, like, if the next, I don't know, Minister of Transport is Donald Trump, who hates wind turbines.
Drill, drill, drill.
Drill, drill, drill. So that will not change, yeah? The approach will keep sailing. Okay. Kaspars, pivoting back to you, this is a good example, a list of issues mentioned by Mārtiņš, but also the construction. We discussed this early contractors' involvement. You know, the construction market in Latvia has had some hiccups in the past, you know, the cartels and everything. How do you see the market? Is there a real competition for projects?
No,
like a real competition?
Definitely it's real competition, because on the scale, the projects are, well, big in volumes, and obviously that's we can see the competition comes across the Baltics. So also for us, we have estimated the projects outside Latvia, and we see that the Lithuanian and Estonian companies are estimating the projects also in Latvia. So I would say that the scale of the project is big enough. So it's interesting for large construction companies in all Baltic countries. So in that perspective, that is okay. On if I can comment a little bit what Mārtiņš said on all the problems, as I expected, it comes from the design. So it means that during the design process, when you have a clue on our idea on which two turbines you can have, then you can do the road surveys on both options, and then you can see, okay, if I choose this, what is the full cost? As I understand the idea that from investor perspective, hey, I want to know when the first kilowatt is going to be in the grid and how much the heck is going to cost that. So, and nobody thinks about logistics, because the logistics are probably the most important part. Also for us, when we did the Jelgava project, the logistics was super important, not only on delivery, but also on, let's say, how to deliver concrete on the sites. Because if you want to do the speed, we had to do one car per every 10 minutes on full of concrete. So it's so we had to do by 24/7, one car every 10 minutes. So logistically, this is the biggest challenge and a nightmare. So the idea is not to forget about the logistics.
Yeah. And we hear that the Algo project is good, so that's well taken.
Cool.
But so no cartel in energy sector for construction, and the actual energy sector is something that drives sort of the transfer of construction companies across Baltics.
I would say yes, that across Baltics is not a problem. We can see that a lot of other general construction companies are looking at our subcontractors, and we are doing the same. So on this perspective, I don't see any obstacle that you cannot get 3-4 decent offers, reasonable offers on a table. That's possible, definitely.
Is that the case, Renars?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at least from our experience, the latest tenders that we have run and we are still running for some of our projects, well, interest from construction companies is there. Well, the same applies, of course, for turbine suppliers. So this is a competitive industry, and I guess this helps a lot also for investors, for energy companies when it comes down to final investment decisions. Well, being aware that there will be interest from other key, let's say, suppliers in all of this process, and well, this would result also in also good cooperation if you pick your future partner right.
Do you tender just for the local companies, or you send it out to Pan-Baltic?
It's as it has been mentioned, yeah, it's a Pan-Baltic market, and we see not only Baltic companies, we see Polish companies, for instance, also being interested and being able to deliver.
That's I think very good news for the market. Time is tight, so one fire round with each of you in each of your respective areas. What is one thing you would want to be improved so the process can become better, or we can actually achieve the scaling of wind energy development? Mārtiņš?
Yeah, from a Stena side, I think that we are pretty much ready for everything today and tomorrow as well. Of course, there are some things which could be improved all the time. But I think that during our discussion, the main thing is the communication between the involved parties and planning. These things definitely could be improved. Yeah.
I would say definitely planning and conversation with the municipalities. I mean, municipalities for us are the bigger bottleneck.
But what do you say to them? What the conversation goes like? They say, we don't want wind, so...
I think Ilze mentioned before about the dance, yes? So let's discuss it that we start with the waltz and we play waltz with them, which is nice. But suddenly, out of nowhere, it's a foxtrot. And this is what's happening. We would prefer to dance slowly with them. We would prefer to have honest conversations when we reach agreements, and these agreements are respected. Not to hear that new conditions are constantly added. It should be somehow standardized. Currently, every municipality has its own terms and conditions. They don't align with each other, and the process is very long and is full of bumps, which could be avoided. Honestly, they could be avoided. So I think that's a bottleneck.
Okay. Mārtiņš?
I would say, actually, for me, municipality is more like institution. With the mayor and administration, I would say that cooperation with local community is a key, especially if we are speaking about roads, local roads. These my favorite gravel roads. For these local people, in their understanding, that's their road. That's their road. His neighbors and his other neighbors' road, and then suddenly. We were just 3 of us on this road. The dust even was ours. And now suddenly there are like 300 cars per day, heavy vehicles. There are bumps and so on and so on. So work with these people is really important. And if this homework hasn't been done, then it's a problem for us. Then it's a problem for these municipalities, and then the real dance starts. the TVs are coming and ministers are getting involved and so on and so on. So that's important. I understand that that's not easy. I know that it might feel that some of them looks crazy sometimes, but somehow dealing with this, actually you are also dealing with other problems. For us, coming towards compromise is much easier if local communities, at least not against the project.
Okay. Kaspars?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to repeat about the planning and local communities, but I would say maybe to identify which of the projects have secured funding. Because again, this would reduce the pressure also on the state roads to just consult those who actually are 90% chance to be built, not 10% chance to build. The same for us, or construction companies, to give more better offers, to spend more time on an offer, to get more into design, etc. You have to have more time. To have more time, you have to choose which projects are you actually going to focus.
But isn't there a contradiction, because you will never, like, the final investment decisions are taken at a very later stage after designing is completed?
Yes and no, but if you know that, let's say, one or another company have previously success where, let's say, they have huge pension fund or state-owned company, whatever, as a fundier, you know what is the target that you have to achieve. If you achieve this, let's say, cost per megawatt, the project is a go. And then you work on that solution. If you have, hey, I need this cost per megawatt, and then I'm going to sell to somebody, and it's already more challenging, and obviously this is, I don't have a specific solution how to solve it.
Yeah.
But if this would be, let's say, with the reservations of the grid or whatever, how to put more pressure that you have to secure clear way how to fund the project, then it would remove the pressure from a lot of, let's say, smoke that we have, a lot of smoke. Not all the projects actually are getting there.
I have many legal caveats to what you just said, but we'll discuss that over wine. Renars, what would you improve, change?
I guess we can look at this from two angles. The first one in relation to what happens in long term with those road modifications which are done for the sake of transportation from the port down to sites. So eventually, well, we have a clear indication now that there are, let's say, in terms of ports of delivery, well, projects on one side of Daugava, they could use most probably Ventspils port. For those projects located on the other side of Daugava, it will be most probably Paldiski. So it would be the same route used all over again, and the same modifications, the same components transported and so on. And in this case, it would imply that, well, what has been done already for, let's say, first and second project most probably will require these changes to the road structure, to different infrastructure elements to be kept in a way also for the next future projects to come, because eventually there is very little chance that a different route would be used. So let's keep what we already worked on and what has been already secured as let's say, as a public asset for other projects. And in relation to what's going on within, let's say, site entry and what's, let's say, local, it's also, well, I guess it's something that developers should bear in mind that in effect, it's investment in local community, and be it municipal road, be it well, state road, eventually it is what it stays after construction works are over. So it's, as Mārtiņš mentioned, it's planning process, but afterwards it stays there, and in a way you will be judged, your contribution, project contribution will be judged by locals to some degree on what you have left after the project is finished. So it's about, well, getting long-term thinking into development
building,
plans.
basically.
And that's the big responsibility for the first ones, because they are giving examples.
And that's very good bridge to my final question, because Renars was one of the first ones to actually build a wind farm. He has gone through all the stages. It took, what, some 10 plus years. Both of us had way more hair when it started, so now we are where we are. So final question to you. Say you have 3 greenfields in all 3 Baltic states, and I'm here asking you to step back from your local role as Latvian manager, but look at the Baltics as a whole. In which country do you develop?
from the point of view of which would be the easiest
Yes.
or the most interesting?
Well, give both.
Well, in terms of easiest, I definitely would go with Lithuania. Simply, well, the legacy is already there. Market has been there, and it's easier to follow that. From the point of view of interesting, well, Northern Brothers, I guess, is the most challenging route to go, taking into consideration all the elements of what has to be taken into consideration and so forth. But then again, well, we are here in Latvia, and I guess, well, I'm not planning to emigrate to any of these two countries. So let's
build
keep
out
our projects here.
Yes. So that's all from my side. Anything from we have? From all?
We have one question. All the mics off. I'll speak louder, I guess. So this is dedicated to Latvian state roads specifically. How does strategy for state roads align with the energy strategy? Is it challenging to obtain new connections for wind parks and industrial development and services?
Actually, it's challenging if we are speaking about road development strategy, because we are lacking we are really lacking finance for the moment. So we are concentrating on very few bigger projects, which is concentrating around Riga, like Riga Ring Road and a connection with Lithuania. So we are Baltica to Lithuania, Lithuanian side. But Riga Ring Road should include, hopefully, also a bridge over Daugava. So I believe that if we finish this, then also deliveries from Ventspils to Vidzeme and Latgale region could be easier, but otherwise they are living their parallel lives, I believe.
Okay, I guess that wraps it up. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening, and let's go dance.